where he was asked, what's the common denominator of greatness? And he said, that's easy. It's love. Right? It's not about the trophies. It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. We love what we do. And then at the very end, he says, we study what we love. And whether you think of yourself as a student, you put your focus on the things that you care most about. So that's what I'm trying to find is, what do you love?
Welcome to Limitless Minds, the podcast where curiosity meets greatness. If you're ready to discover what it takes to be truly limitless and push beyond your own limits, you're in the right place.
Welcome back to the Success Leaves Clues. That's where we are, Travis. We're at the Success.
Is that what this is
Leaves
called?
Clues. The clues this morning are not success. They're also sometimes success is about learning not how to fail.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so I think that's the first 5 minutes of us and our banter was how not to be successful. So we just do the opposite of that. We're just going to do the opposite of that today. In terms of Success Leaves Clues. That being said, you're in Dallas, Texas right now.
Yeehaw. Yep. I'm in Breastland, SMU. Yes, I'm outdoors to I was telling you all, my hotel room has no windows. So instead of being in a cave today, I took the next right step, Josh, and said, I need to get neutral. What's the next right step? I need to get outside. I need to have some light, and found the solution in a cabana by the pool.
I love it. Is that your Nooch Nugget? I mean, are we diving in right now?
No, that's too small. That's like the That's the batter. The batter that falls off the nugget. Yeah, that's the bonus. That's the bonus little
fried crisp on the outside. Just some like crisp.
Like the bonus fry in your McDonald's, you know, you're like, or the onion ring. You're like, I didn't order onion rings. Where'd this onion ring come in my fries? Like bonus. I guess that'd be Burger King, right? That'd be a Burger King bonus. They don't.
I guess so.
Rings. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yes. So yeah, but speaking of Nooch Nuggets, Josh, right? We got to start off the Success Leaves Clues with our Nooch. You want to go first? You want to go second?
No, you got it, bud.
Okay, all right. Here's my Nooch Nugget for everyone, and it again, I'm assuming that you all listen to every one of Josh and I's podcasts. Nooch Nuggets is Josh and I sharing how most recently we were able to demonstrate neutral thinking. And so for me, Josh, so I was just in San Francisco with my wife. And this is one of the few opportunities that the two of us get to kind of co-facilitate and co-present a workshop. My wife comes from really, really great background working for a peace building organization. And obviously my work is in the culture, leadership, and mental performance space. And we were invited by a church, right? We were invited by a church to help their membership deal with just kind of interpersonal relationships, how they can work better together as a group so that they can better serve their community. And so she and I got to do like almost like 2 full days of training with them. So my Nooch Nugget comes from, we split the group up, and we were having them do some empathic listening, active listening exercises with one another, which, you know, and I noticed one gentleman was talking to another gentleman, and it just felt like, oh, there's, you know, a little contention. Right. And as I walked over to the two of them, the one gentleman was trying to say, no, I think, you know, the reason we're doing this, and he was trying to explain the value behind it. And the other guy was going like, I don't know why we're doing this. I don't know why we're doing these activities. I don't need to listen. We work great as a group. And you could just see that all this frustration and was bubbling to the surface. And as I walk over, he's not even looking at me. He doesn't even want to like, kind of like, he's disgust, like, I don't want you here. And my immediate reaction was kind of like, oh, I'm flustered. I'm a little bothered. Like, how can I help this guy? I need to explain. I need to justify why we're doing it. And then we were doing this was supposed to be a listening activity. So as I'm standing there, the three of us are standing there, and he finally
acknowledged your presence at this point yet?
He's finally looking at me because I'd asked a couple questions. Now he's finally looking at me. He's just voicing his frustration. And then I just kind of thought to myself, I'm like, you need, based on my internal dialogue, Travis, you need to shut up, get neutral, and just listen. Just listen to him. And so he's kind of like, he's frustrated. And so there was a couple of chairs right there. I was like, hey, can we just sit down, and I would love to have you continue. Right. And so the three of us sat down, and I was like, hey, and I just said, hey, it sounds like this. I said, it sounds like you're frustrated. This is a little discouraging. Right. Just help me understand why you're so frustrated. And then it just settled into a space where I'm like, oh, the only job I have right now is to listen and understand where he's coming from. I don't need to I don't need to defend the training. I don't need to tell him why this is so important. I don't need to tell him why he's wrong, in my opinion, right? Why, right? I'm like, oh, I'm modeling the activity we're supposed to have everyone do. But the neutrality of it, the nooch nugget is, I was so in my head. My emotions were stirring up. My judgments of him were stirring up. My feelings were stirring up. I was taking it personally. I was like, oh no, get neutral. Right? I'm like, it's not about me. This is about him. So how can I serve him? And so I was just kind of laughing I was then laughing at myself in that moment of, oh, here you were asking them to do the activity, and you were just stuck, jumping, letting your ego jump in. So that ability to get neutral in that moment helped kind of shift the interaction that I have. So it wasn't an exercise. It was a real opportunity just to sit there and be present with him, get neutral, and then so that I could listen to him empathically.
Yeah, I think one of the things you brought up there, I've been thinking about this a lot. I don't know why recently, about how neutrality is shedding your ego. Like,
Yeah.
you have to shed your ego in order to get neutral.
Yep.
Because your ego is going to try and create right or wrong,
Yeah.
Good, bad, all those things. It's going to bring judgment into the equation. That's what your ego does. And it was interesting. I was listening to a meditation this morning, and the person who was leading the meditation said that judgment is the creation of turbulence. And I love that, right? Which leads into my nooch nugget, by the way, for your nooch nugget, I mean, I don't know what kind of sauce that would be. Like, where it's like honey. There's like
honey.
sweetness.
It was
We've already
sweet.
used honey recently.
But it was, what, how about this? Instead of honey mustard, it was mustard honey sauce, because it started spicy.
Like that.
It started spicy, and we were able, neutral helped it get sweet.
Yeah, it gets sweet afterwards. I love that. That's amazing. That's how you have mustard honey. All right. So that being said, going back to ego, as I've explained on this podcast a couple times, I've been training recently for a half marathon.
Yeah.
Running 13 miles. I thought probably for the last 15 years, I haven't been able to run consecutive days without getting injured I'm telling you, for about 15 years.
Yeah.
I shed my ego. I hired a coach. I did this thing called Run Walk. And now on Saturday, it's the half marathon. So let's just talk about neutrality and shedding the ego. The half marathon is running at the same time as a 5K. So half marathon people look typically a little different than the 5K people, i.e. 5K people can be anything from 10-year-old kids to overweight people to whatever, right? And I applaud anybody who gets out there and runs a 5K. I'm not disparaging that at all. So it's awesome. I'm glad they're out there. However, my competitive and egotistical mind, as a 11-year-old and his mom sprints by me at mile 2 because I'm doing Run Walk, is like, oh, they can't pass. I'm going to pass them. I'm not getting beat by a 10-year. Like, that's going on in my brain, right? However, that's the ego. That's the ego, because my goal is not to beat this mom and her 10-year-old kid.
Yeah.
It's not. My goal is to finish a half marathon. That's been my goal since the word go. It hasn't been to run a certain time. It hasn't been to be fast. It hasn't been any of that stuff. It's not to beat my neighbor. There's nothing but finishing. That has been my goal and my mission for this half marathon training. And so I had to catch myself, right? I've used this before, but there's the great philosopher from South Central LA.
Yes.
Check yourself before you wreck yourself.
Yes. Oh,
right.
Such a deep philosopher.
I had to do that. I caught myself. I'm checking my watch and I'm running way faster than I should early, which typically will spell doom for you in mile 11, 12, and 13.
Yeah.
So I caught myself, and I just held myself back, and I started to slow down, and I started to let these 5K people just blow past me. It's fine, whatever. I'm going to stick to what I need to do, which is run for 3 minutes, walk for 1 minute, and keep it at really, when I run for the 3 minutes, it's got to be between a 9:30 and a 10-minute pace. Okay, so that's where I need to be. And I was at like a 8:45 pace early, and I was, I got to pull that back. So I pull it back, I hold tight. I have a glorious run. It is beautiful. It's the Venice half marathon. It runs right along Venice, Florida. Runs right along this canal that goes out to the ocean. You go behind an airport. It's just like it's out in the nature. It was sunrise. It was 6:20 start. So listening to the birds, seeing the storks and the manatees, and it was such a good run. I held back. The last 3 miles, my coach said, you can do anything you want to do those last 3 miles. You can totally go. So I totally went those last 3 miles, had a great run. My wife came out, and I got the coolest medal ever. Look at that.
Go.
Shark medal, baby.
Shark
Let's go. But it was all about, and neutrality was all about the ego, because I was judging. And I was comparing. And I was competitive. And I was also comparing myself to I ran a marathon in my early 20s, mid 20s, New York City Marathon, and I ran it at like an 8:15 pace. So I was kind of comparing myself to that too. And
your previous self.
Throw that stuff away. It doesn't serve me. The only thing the marathon served for me was, hey, you've done a marathon, you could do 13.
Yeah.
So, but that was it. And so that was the Nooch Nugget, was to pull it back, to catch myself going too fast, to get back to my pace, to stick to my plan, over and over and over again for 13 miles, 2 hours and 19. And it was awesome. It was a great day. It was a great day.
To run your race, to stay in your lane, metaphorically and literally. In yoga, right, it would be stay on your mat.
Yeah.
Right. And like you said, right,
I do like to steal my wife's mat every once in a while. Just grab it.
Yeah. Then you get kicked out of the yoga class.
Yeah.
It's messy. But to your point, right, neutral thinking means that it's recognizing the ego, right? We talk about your feelings, your judgments, your emotions, right? That's
the power of noticing.
It's all ego based. And we don't need to, we know the whole expressions, kill the ego is evil. No, the ego is there to help us. It's there to protect us. It's there to serve us. We just don't always want it running every key decision and response. And so the noticer, right? So neutral allows us to notice.
Exactly right.
And then choose the next right.
By the way, I'm dipping these in some champagne.
With electrolytes.
Champagne with electrolytes, dipping it in and just enjoying the I was training for this thing since August, September.
Yeah.
So it's been a little bit of a journey. I remember somebody once told me the marathon or the half marathon is a celebration of all your training. So I like that too.
I love that.
It was a beautiful day, and it was like I was just happy. It was just happy. It was like,
dude, congratulations.
So good. And look,
I know you did it for the medal.
Shark medal. I mean, come on.
I know
it was monstrous. The shark medal. And they had soft serve at the end. They gave me soft serve ice cream at the end.
It'd be great if they were doing the soft serve at every mile marker. Just grab that and just jam that thing. Good. And that's my marathon right there.
Yeah, that's
so Josh, so there is in no way a transition.
No, there is.
There's no you got
there is a transition.
I was just going to ask you, hey, when you're taking out those Nooch Nuggets, do you like to sprinkle a little salt or a little pepper on those bad boys?
Oh, you're going to do Seth Pepper, right? Seth Pepper. I was going to talk about this is a goal, and I accomplished my goal. Well, what's interesting is we have coming up on the podcast here, we got our guy Seth Pepper, and Seth is awesome. I met Seth through an organization that I worked with when I was working in IndyCar. He's working with a bunch of F1 drivers because he's awesome, as you'll find out. And he's just a really interesting guy. But his story is, what's amazing about his story is he was a world-class swimmer. So here's the thing. He wasn't just a world-class swimmer. He was the number one swimmer in the world. He's a world champion. However, we talked about accomplishments and ego. He never made it to the Olympics. And we're going to ask him about that, and we're going to find out kind of a little bit more about that. But I'm just going to read you. I'm just going to pull the bio over here, and we're just going to read this. Is this cool with you? Let's do it. Ready?
Let's do it.
Credits. Ranked number one swimmer in the world, American record holder, 2-time U.S. Open record holder, 2-time national champion, world championship medalist, world university game medalist, Pan Pacific game gold medalist, professional athlete, Nike sponsor, 23-time All-American Conference and University Athlete of the Year, 2-time Hall of Fame inductee. Seth Pepper he lives in Arizona, and today what Seth does is he coaches elite performers who operate in extreme pressure environments. PGA, LPGA major champions, ATP, WTA, NBA, NHL stars, Olympic medalists, world-class directors and actors, and C-suite leaders, let alone these F1 people that he doesn't even mention. So, I'm excited to bring Seth on. As you'll get to know him and get to talk to him, you'll see he's got, and I don't know if this is like a swimmer thing, but there's a thoughtfulness there, right?
Yeah.
And I always say that about swimmers because swimmers are just underwater in their own head for hours on end training.
Yeah.
Seth is a very thoughtful, kind, and caring mental performance coach, and we're excited to bring him on and hear his story from swimmer to coach. Seth, come on in. Let's go. So here we go. So what we're gonna do, Seth, is we'll chat with you a little bit about your swimming career, because this is called the Success Leaves Clues podcast, and obviously you had an unbelievable career and were a highly decorated swimmer. First of all, what event were you swimming? I did not know this.
Shorter the better. So I swim butterfly and freestyle. So
got it.
50 free and then the 100 fly.
Got it. So fly and free, those are like kind of power events, would we call them maybe in swimming? Like you just grit and go, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And you got into, like, from reading kind of your background, you got into swimming a little bit later on in life, correct? And so how did that kind of transpire? And then, you weren't just a swimmer, you were a great swimmer. So how did that, how did you go from swimming to being elite?
I think I was just, first of all, old enough to have experienced the miracle on ice. So I still remember when that happened in real time, and tiny little TVs back then.
Yeah.
But I was too young to know what the Olympics were. So I remember crying myself to sleep, when the Olympics ended. So there was something about the energy that the Olympics brought, a purity, like a sense of, now I understand it because I've actually gone and, sat in the Olympics, been around it, but I think it's that sense of, humanity coming together and celebrating. It just happens to be about, the sports. But it's a beautiful thing to be around. And so when I was 14, that's kind of the age where you start to decide, okay, now it's my choice. What do I want to do? And I hadn't been doing any sports at all. And I grew up in a household where my dad was always reading self-help books. So I grew up with all the Dale Carnegie and, Think and Grow Rich and all these kind of like classic books on being able to unlimit your potential, so to speak. And, it was really taking those books and saying, okay, what if I apply this to this Olympic dream that I've had ever since I was young? And that's really what it was. It was kind of like almost a science project. So I approached it with that sort of experimental look at it and decided, okay, now we got to watch the Olympics and choose a sport. And, every time the Olympics came around, I was kind of entertaining ideas. So even before that, 4 years earlier, Eric Heiden had kind of come on the scene, and I loved his energy and his dominance and that sort of pure spirit. And so I think that once I saw the swimmers in the Olympics, I thought that that's a sport for me for some reason. Even though I didn't know how to swim, I had no clue, how to go fast in the water. But, for me, it was just choose.
Yeah.
And there was a girl, I've always believed in some respect of timing. And, it's kind of the household sort of belief was to be connected to some version that's beyond you, some sort of guiding light, if you will. I try to stay non-denominational these days, but there was a girl that won the gold medal, and the announcer asked this question. I've never heard anyone ask this question since, which is, if there's someone out there that wants to do what you just did, what would you recommend? And so I felt like she was speaking to me. And so I said, whatever she says, that's it. So I grew up in a small town in Oregon. And so we didn't have a lot of access to anything really. And she luckily said, I came through a YMCA. So I looked it up, and yeah, we did have a local Y. So I went down to the Y, and it was a basement pool that had like 2 lanes,
Yeah.
tiny. And walked up to the head coach and I said, "I want to go to the Olympics. Can you help me?" And he kind of smiled. And, that's not your everyday question, especially for someone that's like a freshman in high school.
Yeah.
And he said, "Well, okay, do you know how to swim?" And of course, that's when I had to break it to him that I had no clue.
See how good of a coach you are.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
And
get an opportunity here, buddy. This isn't a challenge. This is an opportunity.
and as we've been joking around, he had a great sense of humor as well. So that was also important, just to keep things in perspective and light. I think that's a big part of this. So he laughed, but he said, "Okay, so you don't know how to swim?" No, no, I don't have a clue. So he's like, "Okay, well, you're gonna have to learn with the little kids." So I didn't really care. I mean, I didn't have a past. This is just a state of, you might call it just curiosity. And so he put me with the 8-year-olds. And so these little second graders came up to my waist and they used to kick my butt every day. The first race was down and back, and I only made it down. I drank half the pool on the way and I had to get out. So that is the beginning. But I always want to share that just because, well, first of all, it gives you the context, but also it what looked like a great weakness, starting so late or disadvantage was actually an advantage because I didn't have a past. I wasn't carrying around, now I have ways of describing it because, working with people now, it's like they carry around the old trophy room on their back, right? So I didn't have any of that. And for me, it was just this big experiment. And my dad was not an athlete, loving, supportive, all about, again, unlimiting your potential. So he was always reading these books. One was on memory. And in this book, in memory, he had this study that had been done in Australia. And I think it's pretty well known now, but back in the day, it was cutting edge. And it was basketball. And they had taken 3 groups, and it was over 3 months, and they had 3 groups where one group was physical training, doing free throws. The next group was a control group that didn't do anything, and then they had another group that just trained their mind. And so once I heard this, I didn't know that you could train your mind. Like, that just sounded space age to me.
Hmm.
And, back then it was like the Russians are doing it. So it definitely had this sort of intrigue of like, okay, maybe there is something to this, like a secret code or something. And so they came back and they tested the 3 groups. And the group that was physical training the whole time, it improved 24%. Control was 0 improvement. And then the third group that was training their mind, didn't even touch a basketball, was 23%.
Huh.
So immediately I did the math and I said, okay, that's it. That's what I've been looking for, is this sort of X factor. So for me, the mental was always the advantage. It was never about, something being broken or anything like
Yeah,
that. I always
yeah.
felt like this is going to give me the edge because I'm trying to compress time. I don't have a lot of time to have, I didn't have any time to have a bad season. So, every single season had to count. And I wanted to find a way to do exponential jumps in my career. And I was able to do that through the minds.
So when did those kind of jumps start happening? Okay, because you're 14, you're jumping in with 8-year-olds, they're kicking your butt. You're just learning how to really swim competitively. And then like how quickly did it jump? I mean, did you obviously you went to college and you crushed it in college, right?
Yeah.
So where did you go and how did that journey occur?
So, kind of the cool things along the way, again, this experiment, the subconscious mind, just curiosity that, hey, you can get on your bike and you don't even think about it. When you're older, you're driving and you don't even think about, how to drive. You just do it. And then you have a phone call and you're able to do all that without, again, just get there somehow. So I really got interested in the power of the subconscious mind. Subconscious mind is really, a big part of it is visually based. So I went and I cut out some pictures. This is at the very beginning. I cut out a picture of Pablo Morales, who was the
Yeah.
Olympian at the time. and it was in a Sports Illustrated edition. And I put a picture of him on the wall, and then I got a picture of myself, and I put them so that they were touching each other. So this was way before anyone was talking about vision boards or any of that. It was literally just wanting to, like a Post-it note is a reminder. So this to me was like a visual reminder, like, hey, keep thinking about this. Every time you see Pablo and yourself, put the two together and just associate it and make it normal ahead of time. And so fast forward, I did become the state champion. I've always believed that my own, destiny, if you will, is up to me. So just like I walked up to that coach, I felt like, okay, let's go find the next coach. So I put together a little packet with my mission statement, and I reached out to all the top 20 schools, and I actually got a really good response. And I went with a coach that reminded me of my dad. Because for me, it was the sacredness of my thoughts. And my dad never messed with my thoughts. He didn't even know my times. He was just fully supportive, and he didn't jump into being the parent coach. Not at all. In fact, it was the opposite. This is your project, you go do it. And so I wanted that, same sort of connection and bond with the coach. And so that's when I chose Frank Bush at University of Arizona. Also, I wanted to go against the best in the world. So some of the things we had talked about earlier, one thing that was really important to me when I was in high school was always trying to get a perspective shift of like, what's the rest of the world doing? So again, those quantum leaps through your mind. And so I used to this is before the internet, of course, but we had this magazine that was kind of our Sports Illustrated for swimming called Swimming World. So they would put the best stats, the best times in the world in the back. So I used to cut it out, take it down and put it in the locker room, and I'd post it for everyone. I'd say, we need to think global, not local. So I was always trying to get my mind into the next shift, the next level, and level up as quick as I could. So for me to go to the Arizona program, I was going to go against the USC, the UCLA, Arizona State, Berkeley, Stanford. I mean, these were powerhouse programs that provided most of the Olympians. And so I remember my first dual meet, we were going against USC, and there was only 8 of us, and I went my best time ever that would have won state. I won state my final year in high school. And so here I was in this meet, just 2 schools, 8 swimmers, and I got dead last with my best time. But I was like, yes, I love this. Because to me, again, the journey was about learning. It wasn't about winning. Eventually, yeah, winning will become something that, will be a byproduct of this, but it really was always about leveling up, always being challenged. And Frank, went on to be one of the more successful, if not the most successful coaches in, his generation, being the head of USA Swimming, also the head USA Olympic coach. So he was around Michael Phelps for the 5 Olympics that Michael was involved in. So he was around the best of the best. And he can't, he's still, in my life, he's kind of like a father figure. He lives in the area, so we do get together. And he said, the thing that I think set you apart was that I saw you get really excited by a bad race that you could learn from, a really bad loss, if you will, as opposed to, an easy win where you didn't really learn much. So for me, it's always been about flipping a switch and changing things so for progress rather than winning. And so, yeah, I did eventually. I was second my sophomore year, second my junior year to the Olympic gold medalist. I was beating him the whole race, and then he would outtouch me in the end. And so I had another coach, because in swimming you have a head coach and you have your kind of specialty coach. So my specialty coach is Rick DeMont, and he was a well-known Olympic swimmer. He held the world record at one time. First swimmer to do negative splitting. That was something that was brand new to swimming. He learned it from hanging out with the track team.
I know what that is, Seth, but I don't think Josh does. So if you want to
All
just
right.
describe that to him.
Absolutely. It's nothing I would
especially after the half marathon. I think a negative split is like how slow you could go. I don't know. Go ahead.
It's nothing I would do because I'd be out of the pool too quick. But in the longer races, what they found was that they could swim the second half faster than the first half,
Mhm.
and that actually was an advantage. And so he was the first to do that in his race and break the world record. So he was a guy that would think out of the box. He was like me, creative and always trying to experiment and find the edge. And so we did this together. And after I got second the first time, he would say things that were weird at the time. He'd say, "Why are you apologizing for your greatness?"
Mm.
And I didn't understand what he was talking about, right? It was strange, very strange, because I was like, "I'm second. I saw that guy on TV not too long ago, and I'm meeting him like, that's pretty good." And I knew that he thought it was good, but he could also see there was another level that I really couldn't see. And then when it happened the second time, I was like, "Oh, what the heck's going on?" And he'd say, "Yeah, Seth, why are you asking permission? Why don't you just take it?" And so he was seeing, and this is a pattern that I've seen even in the work that I do now, is that you can see the greatness in people even when they can't see it at times, right? So he believed in me before I believed in me. I just didn't even know that it was there. And so the final year, this is it, no more after this race. And I remember I was standing behind the blocks, the start, and just something came over me. And my aunt had never been to a swim meet ever. She's a nurse from New York City, and she wanted to see the final race. And she said, "I knew that you had won it before it even began."
Mm.
Hmm.
And she said, "It's just how you stood there. There was a poise about you. And it was very obvious." And what was going on in the inside for me was, and I'll keep this so that it's all audience material, but it was now what I might call the F it switch, where all of a sudden I said, F this race, F these people, I'm effing taking it. And it's all internal, but it sounds aggressive to use the F word, but it was peaceful. It was a moment of like transcendence, if you will, or if you want to.
Letting go.
Yeah, yeah, it's letting go. It's, Star Wars, when Obi-Wan is telling Luke Skywalker, trust the Force, and that came from mythology from Joseph Campbell, who, talks about the life force flowing through us. And what happened is that something took over. Like I can't even remember the race. And I was going faster than I had ever gone before. So I was missing each turn, coming to like a dead stop. And this is butterfly, so we have 4 lengths, so you can imagine we have 3 turns, and every single turn I'm losing all of my momentum, but I beat the field by over a body length, which is really a lot in swimming, and I missed the all-time record by about 2 inches. And so all of a sudden I experienced this whole other world that I didn't even know was possible, but that's what my coach was talking about. That's what he could see in me. And so that created that curiosity, and now for others, that's what I try to help them with. And another cool story is that I have a younger brother, and he started swimming even later. So he started when he was 17. He's a couple years
Started at 17.
Started at 17. It doesn't Our stories do not make sense.
No.
So we're completely different personalities. I'm more like a coach, always looking, to talk to people and learn. My brother is someone that's just enjoys being around groups. And so for him, it was just wanted more friends, social, all that, and just really enjoy himself. And then unbeknownst to me, my coaches could see it, but he wanted to beat me. So I guess younger brothers like to beat their older brother too.
When we can.
As a younger brother, I highly ascribe to that.
Yeah. Ditto.
So what happened was I started working with him, because I wanted to help him. So he was kind of the first person outside myself that I started working with. And so I was like, hey, do this. Back then it was making a script and telling him what to say and record it and make a visualization tape of his own voice, and that different tools along the way. And he too became a national champion as well. So we're the first brothers in the history of swimming to ever win the same title, national title, in the same event. And then we went on to do it at the World Championships to win a medal, first brothers to win a medal. And so our story's really weird in the sense, like, we started really late, but for us it makes sense because we had no limits. For us, we were always kind of in our own world, doing our own thing, and it was more out of curiosity. And so with my brother, so what my coach did for me, we did with my brother, but it was a different version, which is he's a dark horse in the finals. He's in the outside lane because they circle seated, so he's way over outside of the spotlight. It's the fastest heat ever assembled, and coach just goes over to him and says, "Hey, your brother did this. You can too." And that's all he needed to hear. And he just did something he didn't really understand. He didn't need to understand. And he dove in the water and led from the start to the finish, and he won. So again, it's your mind is usually the limiting factor. And that created all this curiosity of, what I've gotten myself into now.
Well, I mean, it's interesting, Seth. Like, obviously, the work that you're doing now, helping others, and all three of us are in this are in this space, and here you are. Almost feels like you had this approach to sports and performance, like from the get go, at a time where these kinds of conversations and these kinds of resources weren't readily available. So what was it about? And I know maybe your home or your environment, or I'm sure had something to do with it, but where did that curiosity come from for you to even think and recognize at such an early age that your mindset was a competitive advantage?
I think for me, it was always dreams, dare to dream. And so our thoughts in my family were sacred, so I think that we always started with that as the beginning. And if you're really, your thoughts become your words, become your actions.
Hmm.
Well, I was very clear in my mind of what I wanted to do. That Olympic dream was crystal clear. So when I went to go talk to the coach, I wasn't going to the coach to, get his approval. I
Mm.
was there to speak my truth. And if he got it, cool. If he didn't get it, okay, let's go find where we need to go talk to the next person. And so I think that's a big part of it. And I think once you can allow yourself to dream, and I like to dream big because it's something that excites you. And, to me, I get kind of, I would say it's like a willpower, if you will. I've watched it in my daughter. I have a daughter now that's 14 playing basketball. And when she was younger, she was in gymnastics. And I remember she was doing the balance beam, just practicing. And she was crying. And purposely, I didn't want her to be around competition at
Mm.
all. I
Mm.
mean, I knew what I put myself through. And I was like, you have to be motivated from the inside. I saw a lot of kids, a majority of the kids that I was around, that they were doing it for someone else's reason. And once I found that they were doing it because their parents were having them do it, or they were, whatever it might be, something else from the outside world, I knew I could beat them. I just knew, because there's no one
Mm.
that had more desire than me. And when I talked to the head coach, and because he took a chance on me, I was kind of a no name when he recruited me. I said, "What was it about me as opposed to anyone else?" He said, "It was desire." He said, "I know enough as a coach that I can't coach desire. And you had more desire than anyone I'd met." So with my daughter, I kind of tried to say, you don't have to compete. You don't have to get involved in any of the measurements of this stuff. You can just go play and have fun. And she would get really upset working on something, and then she'd get even more upset if I tried to, make it okay. "Oh, don't worry about it. It'll be fine."
Yeah.
That made her even more. And I go, "Oh, this is the way people are wired."
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't coach this in her.
Yeah. Yeah.
If anything, I kept it away because it's like almost like self-torture.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of it, is kind of being wired like that. I think a big part is my parents allowed us space to explore so that we could find what we cared about. Because my brother, he wasn't really motivated about sports, ironically. When he won, it was really cool, but it wasn't something that changed his world. To me, I still reflect on winning the title almost every day. I go, did this really happen? That was so awesome. Like, I'm always kind of feeding off that energy. And so with my brother, he wanted to have his own show on the Discovery Channel. That was his dream. And so for me, it's become about, just getting connected to people's dreams, because a lot of times people cover up their dreams and they don't want to care because it's painful to care.
Yeah.
But what if you start caring and you use tools and you come from a place of curiosity and that's it. And you just take steps in that direction. And so with my brother, I said, hey, why don't we use the same tools that we used in the pool for this next thing? And he was like, okay. So in between practices, we used to go and film these, little featurettes that would, I tried to make them. I taught myself how to use the camera and the editing and got the logo and made it look like it came from the Discovery Channel. Then we would put it out, we'd put it up on YouTube and other places. And within a couple of years, producers from the Discovery Channel, that channel, not the others, came to us and offered, he had his own show on the Discovery Channel. So this has always been this.
Wait, what was it? What was the show? What was the show?
I think it was called A History of the World or A History of the Planet, just kind of going through, he's big into geology. And so he's Dr. Pepper. That's his.
Oh, that's fantastic. And your diet.
Of course, you had to have a Dr. Pepper in your family. It's like, you can't. Like, your dad just said, no, I'm going, listen, I don't care which one of you does it.
One's going to be a doctor.
Somebody's got to make it happen.
We're having a Dr. Pepper. No Mr. Pibbs. We need a Dr. Pepper in this family.
That was their neighbor. Pibbs were the neighbor.
So he's the doc. Yeah. 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 So for us, it's always been this curiosity. And so what I try to do, I really feel like I was thinking about this a lot lately, is that I'm not trying to motivate anyone. I try to connect with it. If the tools end up being motivating, great. But when I connect to someone's dream, like I really feel like we're in a fight. We're fighting for your dreams. There's a lot of adversity in the world. A lot of times we're surrounded by people that have limiting beliefs. And, that's part of the process. That's part of the stoicism, right? Your obstacle is your way. So, yeah, it's been a really interesting journey to be able to try and unlock that for other people from all walks of life.
I love that. That's so good, man. Fight for your dream. That's so good.
Yeah.
I had a weird dream last night. I don't want to fight for it.
Yeah.
But other than that,
not all dreams.
It involved like a plane, and like we had to evacuate the plane. It was really weird. It was bizarre. We're not going to go there. We're not going to analyze that today, though, on the show. I do have a question though, and I think you've kind of hit on it, but I want to get a little bit more overt about it. How do you create belief in yourself and in your dreams when you don't have the results already lined up? Like, a lot of people are like, I'll believe it when I see it kind of deal. But you're kind of almost talking about you got to see it to believe it. And so I'm wondering, from your perspective, like, how do you, help the athletes that you work with have that belief before the results?
Well, I think that it's important to almost have a calling in a way, so there's some sort of connection. You're drawn to something. Maybe you can't even really explain it. I couldn't really explain the Olympics. And then if I was to just choose the Olympics, why did I choose swimming? It's one of the most popular sports. I could have chosen another sport that might have had a better entry point. So for me, it's always been what excites you, what kind of scares you, because what scares one person doesn't scare another, good scare, right? Like, oh, wow. Imagine if I did get up on that stage. Imagine if I did go talk to that person or apply for that job or, go try out for that team. Imagine that. And then there's this sort of, response inside of ourselves. And that's what I'm trying to get to, because, a big part of our work is the relationship to pressure. And so pressure, once you understand, is this organic experience of you care about something and it hasn't happened, right? So it creates this suspense, and then your mind's trying to understand, are we going to be the hunter or the hunted? And this creates this sensation of pressure, and pressure is always uncomfortable, right? So we try to find comfort in the discomfort. So for me, it's trying to understand, well, what makes you, uncomfortable? What do you care about? And then, it's been interesting to work with some of the top athletes in the world and catch them pulling back,
Mm.
No, it doesn't work like that. You can't care less and get great results. You have to care. You have to care deeply. You got to let this cut deeply so that you can learn deeply. And so that's been kind of an interesting process to be able to, you know, be around people that are inspired and, just continue to, for me, it was always using your mind as a tool. So now I've been able to kind of uncover these patterns, call them blueprints of greatness. So there's weird things that when you create this necessity, I got to get to the Olympics, or I got to get that, whatever that is. And you allow yourself, that's what our parents really did. They allowed us to care. We didn't need to justify it. It was just, you feel this, go for it. And then study it, be a student of it, your version of study. And so, like, I created all kinds of weird stuff in my head. Like I was very, very delusional in a constructive way, though, where it was delusion, but it wasn't completely detached delusion.
Yeah.
So as I said earlier,
wait, unpack that a little bit, Seth. So
yeah.
Here I am, and you're talking about delusion, but connection. So explain that, because I think one of the things that I see happen out there is all I got to do is think positive and everything's going to work out for me.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit delusion, but you're saying there's another thing that has to be connected to it. So what is that?
Well, I think there has to be an element of reality, the constructive part. So what I used to do, I'd now call it leapfrogging. At the end of a season with swimming, you basically build the whole season for one meet. And at that meet, things happen. So you might, mess up the start or a turn or something like that. But you're stuck with that time because you don't go the same speed, nearly the same speed throughout the season. So as I said, I was compressing time. So I didn't have enough time to have even an average season. And so what I used to do is at the end of the season, I would look at my time and then I'd say, okay, if I took all the imperfections out, what could I reasonably have gone? And still that's going to be really strange to most people because most people would just say, well, that's your time.
Yeah.
I was like, but I knew that, the cell has a resting state. So I knew that I had to keep pushing the envelope so that I was always making the next step normal. And I was trying to trick myself into making this next step normal before it actually had happened, because that resting state would make that normal and then you'd want even more. So what I would do is I go, okay, if I had a great start and all my turns are good, what was my base speed? And then I say, okay, that's a reasonable time. Now the delusion is that I didn't go it. It was made up. But I could justify it. And so what I did was I removed all of the evidence of the real time and I just laser focused on this new time. And then I thought about it so much that it became kind of like my reality. And then you naturally will start to go, okay, well, now that I've gone this time, which I haven't, but in my mind I had, you start to base your goals off of that. And so I used to do these leapfrogging seasons. And one of my friends that was on the team, he was like, you can't keep dropping 2 seconds every season, Seth. And I remember responding to him and going, why not? I'm the one that decides that.
Oh man, phenomenal.
So the necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yeah.
So I had an extreme necessity. Necessity is very uncomfortable, like we talked about earlier. It's like a form of self-torture. And so I did weird things. Like there was a new guy that came to our team, and our number one rival was Australia, United States and Australia, the two swimming powerhouses. And he was an Aussie, and he was the best from, his country. So I remember before he ever got there, I said, every single day I'm going to take his soul. Now that sounds twisted, right? Totally twisted.
Seth Pepper. He was so nice. He was such a great guy to just now he's just ripping people's souls out of them.
You weren't killing his soul. You were just taking it. I'm just going to take your soul for a little bit.
You're going to put it in Mr. Pibb's house. We're good.
Yeah, exactly. And so through the course of a workout, in my mind, it's all in my mind, it's never out loud, I would let him get a little bit of hope, and then I would crush him. I just wanted him to know I was always in charge. And so that's twisted. I wouldn't even be sharing this if it wasn't for someone saying, hey, you know what? You sound like Michael Jordan in his Hall of Fame speech.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? And I went and I looked at it and was like, oh my gosh.
I did that on this fire.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he created these internal rivals, and he had everyone sitting in the audience, and he started telling us what actually got him to that next level. And it was, like you said, throwing another log on the fire. And these were made up lies. These are logs. These were delusional logs, but they created a higher and higher level of necessity. Kobe did the same thing. Kobe had his kill list, and it came from a ranking that had Street and Smith, the ranking magazine for basketball. And he used that as his kill list. And that created logs on his fire.
Yeah, Amon St. Brown, I think, for the Lions, the wide receiver, he has the list of every wide receiver taken before him in the draft, and he just has that in his locker, right? And every time he faces that team, it's a log on the fire, right? I'm going to outperform the guy that you took over me.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what I've been able to, come back to with working with people is, hey, the motivation is it's not your coach's job. And you wouldn't want it to be his job or her job, because I could always beat someone because I was intrinsically motivated.
Yeah.
If you have to get your motivation from the outside world, it makes you weak. You have to find it inside you to know that this is an ongoing relationship that you're having with yourself. And it's an exploration, because, it might be this internal rival, I start calling it, or it might be something else. I created another state of delusion where I was always trying to understand myself, like what motivates me. And so I was a leader type personality, and I felt like I was always wanting to be an example. So another state of delusion that I used, or tool, was that I just now call it all eyes on me, where I imagined that everybody was just drop jaw drooling. Everyone, my teammates would just stop and they would watch me, just move through the water. It's crazy. But for me, that motivated me because I felt like I was always under the spotlight, and that every single stroke had to be perfection. Now, that would not motivate my brother at all. He could care less what everybody else thinks.
Well, Seth, that's what this makes me think of a lot times now, is because your motivation, right? Your motivation compared to your brother's motivation, compared to your daughter's motivation, compared to the endless number of athletes that you've now worked with and helped, and performers, the motivations are different. Do you have a common starting point when it comes to working with someone or helping someone? What is that starting point? I know you've talked about what is your dream, but where do you find that common starting point that then works with lots of different motivated people?
Well, one of my favorite clips is a Kobe clip where he was asked, what's the common denominator of greatness? And he said, that's easy. It's love. Right? It's not about the trophies. It's not about the money. It's not about the fame. We love what we do. And then at the end, it's only like 10 or 15 seconds long. And then at the very end, he says, we study what we love. And whether you think of yourself as a student, you put your focus on the things that you care most about. So that's what I'm trying to find is, what do you love? What do you love? And the greats, as much as it might seem like they win a lot of trophies and they do all these things that, they get a lot of exposure from, what they're really looking for is a feeling. It's a feeling. It's like I've heard, working with around the Butch and Claude and their connection to the Tiger, and Tiger calling up Butch and saying, "I can feel it," right? Like it was a swing, and he was all excited, like he had connected to this thing. For me, it was how I moved through the water. When I was really locked in, I felt like the water was hugging me, and I was getting maximum leverage to just move like a snake through the water. So I think that there's a feeling that we get when we're doing it, and we want to find that more often. I just recently heard Tom Brady talk about the feeling of a perfect pass, and that he throws 700 passes in an NFL season, but there's only about 20 out of those 700 that were exactly the way he wanted it and felt like this pop that he talks about. And he says, that's my addiction. That's my sickness. My healthy sickness is searching for that feeling. And I think that's what I try to get in touch with, is what lights you up? What's the
Yeah,
feeling?
a lot of the major leaguers would always talk about that, like that feeling of when the ball comes off the bat perfectly, and they just seek for it, and they're addicted to it, and when they get it once, they're like, oh, I want that again and again and again, and it doesn't happen because it's Major League Baseball and it's freaking hard and it's full of failure. But these guys, like that's it, and you're right, and that's why they're in the cage all day long and all that stuff. Yeah, I totally subscribe to that, Seth. No doubt, the feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, and being able, I think for me, it's been being able to speak from experience and hold the space of the simplicity of it.
Yeah.
Because right now, I mean, it's been like this for a long time, the information age, we know everything. I've gotten more and more bold to be able to say, I'm not going to teach you anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to
Huh.
remind you of a couple of things, and we're going to make them top of mind, most important. And then the most important thing is accountability. Did you go do it? I know it, but did you do it? And if you didn't do it, do you want to do it? Okay. Well, you get another rep to do it. Check in on that rep. So it's the simplicity of it, because everyone's algorithm feed is giving them all this information, kind of tricking their brain into the fact, not the fact, because it's not a fact, but tricking their brain into the experience that they actually went and did something. When they didn't do it, they just knew it for a moment. And the mind is always going to be attracted to something newer and flashier, that silver, that shiny object. And so that's what I try to do, is circle back to, what do we have control over, right? Because most things we don't have control over in a competition. And then, the connection to that feeling. And I try to surround people. That's why I love the name of this podcast. I just say that evidence is all around you. You just have to filter it out, right? Because you're going to make it more important. You're going to start to see it, and you're going to experience that, the RAS, reticular activation system, pulling in, filtering your top priorities, and then confirmation bias. And it's going to be about you and your goals, and how they're getting closer because you're learning more, and you're getting a deeper understanding. And that's what I just try to do, is just surround them with so much evidence that it's undeniable.
Yeah.
And that's my obsession.
Which then, to Josh's point earlier, right, it builds the belief, the evidence, right? The evidence builds the belief, right? You're almost kind of creating this ecosystem, this chamber of belief that is driven towards what that process and the progress looks like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the word that I've heard Joshua use before is conviction. So big, kind of sports hero, human hero for me was Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali would say, I am the greatest. And then when you go and you find out that, oh, he was saying that before he was world heavyweight champion, and he was actually trying to say it over and over and over so he could convince himself, oh, the human voice is, your voice is the most powerful thing you'll ever experience, because it's so familiar. And so how are you guiding that? And if someone, like for me, it was someone asked me, how did you become so great at what you did, as an athlete? And I still do it now in my own practice. But as an athlete, I would say, well, I told this white lie to myself over and over and over until I believed it. And then I went and did it. And then everybody else around me believed it. So, but it started with a little white lie. So it was a constructive delusion, or, like Muhammad Ali was saying, is that I was trying to convince myself and turn this belief into a conviction. And once it became a conviction, then you're dealing with a completely different thing. Because now the experience is reverse engineering, in real time through your new formed identity. Oh, I am the person that puts the bat on the ball more often, or, hits the ball straighter, or, gets the puck in the net more often. But it starts with being able to steer that through your own voice and create the conviction.
Yeah, it's amazing too, because you kind of you talked about it earlier, where you had that effort moment, and like you said, your aunt saw you on the blocks. She's like, "Oh, this one's done."
Mm.
And it's funny too, because I've seen that before with certain athletes and certain teams and things of that nature. But I kind of want to bring this full circle, and this is literally, we're talking about curiosity. So I'm kind of curious too. You were world champion. You medaled in the world championships, Olympic. All American. American record hold and things like that. But I didn't see the Olympics on your bio. So I'm kind of curious about that. And if you don't mind kind of diving into that a little bit, because here we are, we're talking about success. Success
Mhm,
leaves clues.
mhm.
And Travis and I started this podcast kind of joking around about how we were failing, and we're like, how not to do it, right? So
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious about that piece too, and how you managed maybe not success.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for pointing that out.
No, no. I didn't want to do it that way.
Josh is good at that, Seth. Yeah.
Oh wait, the internet's going off. What's
Yeah,
happening? What's
let's
happening? I'm
rub
having
some
a
salt.
technical difficulty.
Oh, okay. So you wanna see me cry. All right. So, yeah, I did. Okay, so I introduced the idea of, taking this Olympic hero, putting it on the wall,
Yeah, Pablo Morales.
full circle. Pablo Morales, true story. I win the national championship, the F-it switch result. I get it. And there's Pablo. Pablo's at the award ceremony. He hands me the trophy. Okay. True story. Well, he comes back into my life, and guess what? He comes out of retirement, and I have to race against him for the spot on the Olympic team. So I always joke around, like, if you believe in the vision boards, or, some sort of programming through visual cues of your subconscious mind, I was like, I should have taken his picture off the wall after I got the trophy. Maybe he wouldn't have come into my life for a second time, because the second time he handed me defeat. He beat me 2 inches, made the Olympic team, and he took the spot on the Olympic team I would have taken. That simple. So I always look at the hero's journey, and go, okay, that was a huge sore, but it's a sore that never heals because it serves me now. And so I got in my own way. I was an overthinker. I didn't know the things that I know now. I knew the power of the mind, but what really guides me now is I want to be the person that I would have wanted to talk to, because I was under world record pace a number of times. I shouldn't just, not just make the Olympic team, I should have gone the fastest ever. And so that creates that curiosity of, well, I knew a lot and I achieved a lot, but man, look at this, and then look at this, and then look at this. And look at these people, in modern times that are, using the same tools, and look at what they're doing. So it's come full circle. And I'm very grateful for it, because
Yeah.
it's given me perspective. You have to learn to lose greatly to win greatly. And so, that's where I can sit in front of someone, look them in the eye, and say, hey, I've been the best, and I've also, been the worst, dramatically speaking.
Yeah. Yeah. Seth, I appreciate that. I love the vulnerability and the humility in that. And personally could, sit and talk to you, or actually listen to you afterwards.
I'm kind of wishing he had just done like a Tanya Harding on Pablo Morales now.
Just,
Before
yeah.
That's all right. That's all right.
We don't know what happened to Pablo. But Seth, how we like to wrap up every podcast is it's the success leaves clues. So Josh and I are going to listen back to you I mean, again, I don't know how we're going to decipher what we actually share, but what clues we heard from you, which are many. And so this is sort of us listening back to you and thanking you in what we heard. So Josh, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll jump in first. I think one of the biggest things that you hear throughout this entire podcast is the loss of ego. We started our podcast. You weren't a part of this, Seth, but we started our podcast talking about how neutral is the loss of ego, and getting to neutral and getting to that even places, releasing judgment. And so what you did so clearly with your how you bounced, you leapfrogged and you went to 2 seconds was, this was my time. This was the reality. My turn was bad here. I missed this stroke here. I didn't stretch here at the end. I was a little bit off on this dive. Boom. Now I'm going to hone that stuff. I'm going to clean it up, and I'm going to go forward, and I'm going to go farther. And that is a loss of ego. That is just dealing with reality. It is dealing with not with all the stuff that, hey, this is what I was great at. It was, how can I improve? And that is all about letting go of the shield of comfort and diving into, hey, how can I just get better? How can I get better? And let's get rid of the ego.
Love it. Yeah. All right. I've got two. And Josh, you get another one. You can bookend.
This is like one of those fantasy drafts where I went first. And
we did snake draft.
Twice,
snake
and
draft.
I go again.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So my two, I really loved, and you mentioned it a few times, about just sort of the messaging that you got from your parents around your thoughts. They were, I can't remember what word you used, but sacred. There we go. Oh, even better. Yeah. Your thoughts were sacred. And I just love that as an example, not as a parent of 3, but for anyone listening, about just how powerful that had to be for you to grow up into that and to feel validated that your thoughts and your feelings were sacred, and to honor that and cherish that, and what an impact that had on you. Second one is, we can say it's curiosity. We can say it's you are a learner, but you mentioned it, like intrinsic motivation of love, right? And loving the journey, whether it's the hero's journey, loving the process, and just loving the day-to-day. Like one of the quotes that I share with a lot of the athletes I'm working with who feel stuck is the quote, "Find joy in the in-between." And what I just felt like is that you found joy, which was often suffering, but you found joy in the day-to-day process of going after those goals. And we know that the majority of our life is spent in the in-between, in the process between goals, between objectives. And it just was, for me, it was like bursting out of your day-to-day love for what you were doing.
Yeah. And then the last one I'll share, because you stole love from me. But that's okay. It was Valentine's Day like 3 days ago, so I missed it. It's my bad. No, the thing that jumped out at me was the sense of like understanding, right? And so there's an understanding of what the elite athlete has to go through, because you've been there and done that. There's an understanding that not everybody's motivation is exactly the same. And so here I go. And so I need to just find out what that motivation is for the athlete I'm talking about. What's their dream? Right. And so there isn't a cookie cutter recipe. It's about, hey, I understand that we have all the knowledge, but your journey is your journey. And I'm going to be there, and I'm going to fight for your dream. I love that. Fight for your dream. So that understanding is the other piece for me that really, and I think it's a byproduct of your curiosity. So
yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Seth,
Travis, anything else to kind of wrap this puppy up?
I was just gonna give Seth the opportunity to share how can people find you most easily? Where do you want them to go?
It's just my name.com, so sethpepper.com. On all the, social media handles the same, Seth Pepper. So reach out. Love to hear from people, no matter where you're at, no matter what you're going through. I always like to have a conversation with people. So please feel like my door is always open, and just keep sharing the greatness that's inside you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Again, just an amazing inspiration packed hour.
Appreciate it. If you want more of this kind of incredible content, you just pound that subscribe button. Subscribe on our podcast, number 1. Number 2, go to limitlessminds.com and lock in and subscribe to our newsletter as well. You'll get some massive insights from all of those. Like that plug. I have never done a plug before.
That was a good plug, Jay. Yeah.
It was good, right?
Smash that subscribe button. Yeah. What do we know about the mind, Josh?
Well, that you don't have to be sick to get better.
There we go. Boom.
Thanks so much. Appreciate you, Seth. You're the man.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Have a great day.